The Galactic Council chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive station where hundreds of alien species gathered to maintain peace. For 10,000 years, the Council had prevented wars and settled disputes. Species of every shape and size filled the Great Hall: insectoid Klixen with their clicking mandibles, towering Gorath whose bodies glowed with inner light, and the proud avian Zephyrim whose feathers shimmered like jewels. Among them sat the humans, small and plain by comparison. They had joined the Council only 50 years ago, and most species barely noticed them. Humans were considered minor players in galactic affairs, weak, soft-skinned creatures who spoke too much about feelings and not enough about power. Ambassador Talia Reeves sat in the human delegation section, her gray hair pulled back neatly, her face calm as she listened to the emergency session. She had represented Earth for 20 years now, and she had learned to ignore the dismissive glances from other delegates. High Commander Zexthar stood at the center platform, his golden feathers ruffled in agitation. The Zephyrim leader was speaking about the growing threat in the outer sectors. The Vraxian hegemony has destroyed 3 colonies this month alone, Zexthar announced, his voice carrying through the chamber with natural authority. They ignore our warnings. They mock our treaties. Their fleet grows larger each day, and their warlord Kravex has declared his intention to expand across the entire eastern spiral arm. Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembly. The Vraxians were a warrior race, brutal and efficient. Their ships were massive things covered in weapons, and they had never lost a major battle. Other species feared them, and with good reason. We must assemble a coalition fleet, Zexthar continued. Every species must contribute their finest warships. We will meet the Vraxians in battle and show them that the Council stands united. One by one, species representatives stood to pledge their forces. The Gorath promised 50 capital ships. The Klixen offered a swarm of fast attack vessels. The Zentari would send their famous shield cruisers. When the call came to the human section, all eyes turned to Ambassador Reeves. She stood slowly, her small frame seeming fragile among the towering aliens around her. Earth will contribute 12 ships to the coalition, she said simply. Silence. Then scattered laughter echoed through the chamber. 12 ships? The Gorath alone were sending 50. Even the minor species were pledging more than that. Zexthar's feathers flattened against his skull in what humans had learned was a sign of disappointment. Ambassador Reeves, surely Earth can spare more than 12 vessels. The Vraxians field thousands of warships. Talia's expression didn't change. 12 ships is our contribution. We believe it will be sufficient. More laughter. A Klixen delegate clicked something that the translators rendered as typical human arrogance without capability. Zexthar simply nodded and moved on, clearly considering the human contribution worthless. The Council voted to assemble their coalition fleet at the Terminus Station, a strategic stronghold at the edge of Vraxian space. Within 2 weeks, thousands of ships from dozens of species gathered there. The fleet was impressive: massive carriers, sleek destroyers, heavily armored dreadnoughts bristling with plasma cannons and missile pods, and 12 human ships. The human vessels looked almost comically out of place. They were smaller than most capital ships, with smooth hulls painted in simple gray. No obvious weapons arrays, no intimidating spikes or glowing energy cores. They looked more like cargo haulers than warships. Admiral Chen Wei commanded the human squadron from the bridge of the UHSV Perseverance. He was a man in his 60s with black hair streaked with white and eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the view screen as thousands of alien warships maneuvered into formation. "Sir, we're receiving another message from the Coalition Command," his communications officer reported. "They're asking if we want to take up rearguard positions away from the main combat zone." Chen smiled slightly. "Tell them we'll position ourselves where we can be most effective. We'll maintain our current location." "They're not taking us seriously," his first officer commented. "Good," Chen replied quietly. "Let them underestimate us. We're here to observe and assist if necessary. Nothing more. And if it becomes necessary." Chen turned to look at his officer, and something in his eyes made the younger man straighten. "Then we'll do what humans do best. We'll adapt." The coalition fleet waited for 3 days before the Vraxian force appeared. When they did, the sensor readings made several alien commanders gasp. 5,000 Vraxian warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their hulls black and angular, their weapons already charging. Warlord Kravex broadcast his message across all channels. His face was reptilian, with scales like dark metal and eyes that burned with red light. Council weaklings, you have entered Vraxian territory. Surrender now, or your ships will become debris. Zexthar responded with the formal declaration of defensive action, and then the battle began. Plasma beams lanced through space. Missiles streaked between ships like angry fireflies. The Coalition fleet fought bravely, but the Vraxians were experienced and ruthless. Their formations were tight, their targeting precise. Within the first hour, the Coalition had lost 300 ships. The human vessels hung back, seemingly doing nothing. They moved in perfect formation, their weapons silent. On dozens of alien command bridges, officers pointed at the human ships with contempt. Cowards, one Clixon captain hissed. But on the bridge of the Perseverance, Admiral Chen watched everything with intense focus. His tactical officer was recording every Vraxian maneuver, every weapon signature, every pattern in their attack formations. Analysis? Chen asked quietly. Their tactics are efficient but predictable, sir. They rely on overwhelming firepower and numerical superiority. No creativity. They haven't fought anyone who could match their technology in centuries. Chen nodded slowly. Interesting. Very interesting. Sir, the Coalition is asking for our assistance. They're being pushed back. Not yet, Chen said. We're still learning. The battle raged for 6 more hours. The Coalition fought desperately but continued to lose ground. And still the human ships waited, silent and watching, gathering data that would soon change everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity. The Coalition fleet limped back to Terminus Station with nearly half their ships destroyed or damaged. The Vraxians had withdrawn after achieving their objective, proving that the Council's military power was insufficient to stop them. Warlord Kravex had broadcast a final message declaring 5 more systems now belonged to the hegemony. In the emergency council session that followed, anger and fear filled the chamber. Species representatives shouted accusations at each other. Some blamed poor tactics. Others claimed betrayal. Many looked for someone to blame. High Commander Zexthar's feathers had lost their luster. He looked older somehow, defeated. The Vraxians are stronger than we calculated. They have more ships, better weapons, and their commanders are experienced. We need to reconsider our approach. We need to surrender, a Clixon delegate said bluntly. They're too powerful. We should negotiate terms before they destroy more colonies. Never, Zexthar snapped. We are the Galactic Council. We do not bow to warlords. Ambassador Reeves stood slowly, and surprisingly the chamber quieted. Perhaps it was curiosity about what the humans would say after their ships had done nothing during the battle. We do not recommend surrender, Talia said calmly. The Vraxians can be stopped, but the Council needs better intelligence about their capabilities. We need to understand their patterns. Zexthar's head swiveled toward her with sharp precision. Your ship sat idle during the entire battle, Ambassador. Your 12 vessels fired not a single shot while good soldiers died around you. And now you speak of intelligence and patterns? Talia met his gaze without flinching. Our ships were gathering data. We needed to see how the Vraxians fight, how they think. We can share our analysis with the Coalition. Data? Zexthar's feathers rose in clear anger. We needed warriors, not observers. Your species claims to be part of this council, yet you contribute nothing when called upon. Perhaps humans are simply cowards hiding behind diplomatic words. Several delegates murmured agreement. The human delegation sat quietly, their faces neutral. Only Ambassador Reeves showed any emotion, a flicker of sadness in her eyes. We are not cowards, Commander, she said softly. We simply prefer not to fight unless absolutely necessary. Then you are useless, Zexthar declared. The Council needs defenders, not philosophers. Talia sat down without another word. The session continued for hours, eventually deciding to assemble an even larger fleet. Every species would contribute more ships. The Coalition would meet the Vraxians again in 3 weeks at the Horizon Sector, where a major trade hub served billions of civilians from neutral worlds. The humans pledged 12 ships again. This time nobody even laughed. They simply ignored the human contribution entirely. 3 weeks later, the situation grew desperate. The Vraxians had sent a massive force toward the Horizon Hub, over 2,000 warships. Their intention was clear. They would conquer the hub and control the most important trade routes in the sector. Billions of civilians would fall under Vraxian rule. The Coalition assembled their new fleet, 6,000 ships from across the galaxy gathered to defend the hub. And floating among them, seemingly insignificant, were 12 human vessels. Admiral Chen stood on his bridge watching the preparations. His crew worked quietly, efficiently. They had been preparing for this moment for 50 years, though the galaxy didn't know it. "Sir, Coalition Command has assigned us to protect the evacuation corridors," his communications officer reported. "They want us to guard the civilian ships fleeing the hub." "Acceptable," Chen replied. "We'll position ourselves along the main evacuation route." "Tactical, what's our assessment?" His tactical officer pulled up the display. "The Vraxians will likely punch through the Coalition's left flank within the first 2 hours. Their strategy favors overwhelming a weak point, then rolling up the line. The Coalition knows this and has reinforced that sector. But the Vraxians will adapt. They'll probably feint left and hit the center instead. Casualties. Coalition will lose approximately 40% of their fleet. The hub's defenses will fail within 4 hours. Civilian evacuation will be incomplete." "Estimated civilian deaths in the millions," Chen nodded slowly. "And if we intervene?" "Depends on how much we reveal, sir. Minimal intervention. Defensive actions only, unless civilians are directly threatened." "Understood, sir." The battle began exactly as the human computers had predicted. The Vraxians hit hard and fast, their dark ships sweeping through space like a plague. The Coalition fought bravely, but they were outmatched. The Vraxian weapons cut through shields and armor with terrible efficiency. The human ships maintained their position along the evacuation route, watching as thousands of civilian vessels fled the hub. They moved in perfect formation, their sensors tracking every ship, every weapon, every movement in the massive battle unfolding around them. 2 hours into the fight, a group of Vraxian raiders broke through the Coalition lines, 50 ships racing toward the evacuation corridor where thousands of defenseless civilian vessels were desperately trying to escape. On the Perseverance's bridge, alarms began sounding. "Sir, Vraxian strike force approaching the civilian convoy. They're targeting the evacuation ships directly." Admiral Chen's expression hardened. "Rules of engagement, sir?" his first officer asked, though he already knew what was coming. "Those are civilians, non-combatants, children." Chen's voice was quiet but filled with steel. "Authorization code Chen Alpha 7. Rules of engagement Pattern Omega." His first officer straightened. "Pattern Omega confirmed, sir. All ships acknowledge." Across the human squadron, something changed. The ships that had seemed inactive for weeks suddenly moved with purpose. Their engines flared with power that sensor readings said shouldn't be possible. They accelerated at speeds that would crush any organic crew. But the humans inside were protected by technology the galaxy had never seen. The 12 human ships positioned themselves between the Vraxian raiders and the civilian convoy. For the first time since arriving in Council space, human weapons activated. What happened next made the entire galaxy fall silent. The human ships didn't fight like other species. They didn't exchange volleys of plasma fire or launch waves of missiles. They fought with precision that seemed impossible. Their weapons tracked targets with perfect accuracy. Their movements were calculated thousands of steps ahead. One human destroyer fired a weapon that looked like a simple metal rod. The projectile accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. When it hit a Vraxian warship, the kinetic energy was so immense that the enemy vessel simply ceased to exist, converted to plasma and scattered atoms in a microsecond. Another human ship released what looked like a cloud of small drones. Hundreds of them, each no bigger than a fist. They spread through the Vraxian formation like a swarm, and each one found a target. Engines, weapons, bridge sections. The drones struck with surgical precision, disabling ships without destroying them entirely. A third human vessel fired something that made space itself seem to twist. The weapon hit a cluster of Vraxian ships and their hulls simply collapsed inward, crushed by forces that shouldn't exist in normal space. The engagement lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds. When it ended, all 50 Vraxian raiders were destroyed or disabled. Not a single human ship had been scratched. Not one civilian vessel had been harmed. The entire battle paused. Coalition ships stopped firing. Vraxian commanders froze in confusion. Everyone stared at their sensors, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. On 1,000 different bridges across the battlefield, the same thought occurred simultaneously. What were those weapons? What were those ships? What were the humans? High Commander Zexthar's voice came across the command channel, shaking slightly. Human vessels, what did you just do? Admiral Chen's response was calm and measured. We neutralized the immediate threat to non-combatants, Commander. The situation is contained. The civilians are safe. That's impossible. Those weapons, those maneuvers, how? We did what was necessary, Chen replied. Nothing more. But everyone knew it was much more than that. The humans had just revealed that they were not weak. They were not helpless. They had been hiding something incredible, something terrifying. And the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The battle for Horizon Hub ended in a coalition victory, but nobody celebrated. The Vraxians had retreated, confused and cautious after witnessing what the human ships had done. The coalition fleet had survived, though badly damaged. And everyone had questions about humanity. Intelligence reports flooded through Council networks within hours. Every species with advanced sensors had recorded the human intervention, and their scientists were analyzing the data with growing disbelief. The Gorath's top physicist submitted a report stating that human weapons violated at least 3 fundamental laws of physics as the galaxy understood them. The Klixin military analysts calculated that a single human destroyer had firepower equivalent to 200 standard warships. The Zentari engineers examined the scans of human hull materials and concluded they were constructed from alloys that shouldn't be able to exist in normal space. Most disturbing of all were the recordings of human ship movements. They had accelerated and maneuvered in ways that should have turned their crews into liquid. Yet the humans inside had suffered no ill effects. Their ships moved as if they could predict every enemy action before it happened. An emergency council session was called. This time attendance was mandatory. Every species representative was present, and all eyes fixed on the human delegation as they entered. Ambassador Reeves walked to her seat with the same calm demeanor she always displayed, but those who knew her well noticed the tension in her shoulders. She had known this day would come eventually. 50 years of carefully maintained secrecy was ending. High Commander Zexthar stood at the central platform, his feathers rigid. Ambassador Reeves, the Council demands an explanation. Your ships displayed weapons technology far beyond anything we have ever encountered. Your vessels moved with impossible precision. Your combat effectiveness was— He paused, searching for words. Unprecedented. Talia stood slowly. We defended civilians from attack, Commander. We did what any council member would do. Do not deflect, Zexthar's voice rose sharply. You have been hiding your true capabilities from this council for 50 years. You have deceived us. You have violated the trust upon which this body is founded. Murmurs of agreement echoed through the chamber. Many species felt betrayed. They had treated humans as minor partners, weak and insignificant. Now they realized humans had been watching them, judging them, all while possessing power that dwarfed their own. A Klixin delegate stood, mandibles clicking rapidly. How many ships does Earth really have? How many weapons? What else are you hiding? Talia took a slow breath. We have always been honest about our intentions. We came to the Council seeking peaceful cooperation. We have never threatened anyone. We have never sought to impose our will on others. You lied about your strength, Zexthar stated flatly. We revealed only what was necessary, Talia corrected gently. There is a difference. Semantics. A Gorath representative's body glowed with anger. You watched us struggle against the Vraxians. You let good soldiers die while your ships sat idle, and all the time you could have ended the battle in minutes. Talia's expression finally showed pain. Yes, we could have. But at what cost? If we had revealed our full capabilities immediately, what would have happened to the Council? How would you have reacted? Silence fell over the chamber. They all knew the answer: fear, suspicion, possible conflict. The Council might have collapsed entirely. We wanted to be your partners, Talia continued quietly. Not your masters. Not your conquerors. We hoped that by participating as equals, by contributing what we could without dominating, we could build real trust. We wanted to belong. You had no right to make that choice for us, Zexthar said. But his tone had softened slightly. Admiral Chen's voice suddenly came through the communication system, his hologram appearing beside Ambassador Reeves. The Council had not authorized his presence, but nobody moved to stop him. Commander Zexthar, you said we let good soldiers die. Chen spoke calmly but firmly. You're right, we did. And that weighs on every human commander who watched it happen. But consider what the alternative would have been. Fewer deaths, faster victories, Zexthar replied. Perhaps, or perhaps you would have demanded we solve all your problems. Perhaps you would have become dependent on human protection. Perhaps you would have feared us and built alliances against us. We've seen how species react to overwhelming power. We've studied your histories. It rarely ends peacefully. So you decided to manipulate us instead? A delegate challenged. We decided to give you the choice to know us as people first before knowing us as a power, Chen replied. We wanted you to judge our character, not our weapons. The debate continued for hours. Some species demanded complete transparency, full disclosure of all human military capabilities. Others called for sanctions or even expulsion from the council. A few, mostly the smaller species, remained quiet but thoughtful. Finally, a Zentari elder stood. The Zentari were known for their wisdom and long memories. I have a question for the humans. A simple one. What is your fleet strength? How many warships does Earth possess? Talia and Chen exchanged glances. This was the moment of truth. Our 12 ships here represent approximately 0.001% of our total military capability, Chen stated clearly. The chamber erupted. The mathematics were staggering. If 12 ships could do what they had witnessed, and that represented only a tiny fraction of human strength, then Earth possessed military power beyond comprehension. Impossible, someone shouted. Verify it, Chen said simply. Send observers to Sol system. We'll show you. That offer shocked everyone into silence. Humans were willing to reveal their homeworld's defenses? Species never did that. It was an invitation that left the council stunned. But before any response could be formulated, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Emergency broadcasts came through on all channels simultaneously. A Vraxian transmission filled every screen. Warlord Kravex's reptilian face appeared, his red eyes burning with rage. Council weaklings and human deceivers. Kravex hissed. You think your tricks frighten the Vraxian hegemony? You think we will cower because humans have hidden weapons? I will show you what happens to those who defy us. The image changed to show a massive fleet gathering in Vraxian space. The sensors counted ships automatically. 10,000. 20,000. 30,000. The numbers kept climbing. This is the full might of the Vraxian hegemony, Kravex announced. 50,000 warships, the largest fleet ever assembled. And we have one target, one destination. We will strike at the heart of human deception. We will destroy Earth itself. The transmission ended. The council chamber fell into chaos. Species representatives shouted questions. Military commanders demanded information. The panic was immediate and visceral, but in the human delegation section, Ambassador Reeves had gone very still. Her face was pale, and for the first time since joining the council, tears formed in her eyes. Admiral Chen's hologram flickered slightly. His expression showed deep sadness mixed with resignation. Ambassador. Zexthar turned to her, his anger forgotten in the face of this threat. We will help. The council will send everything we have to defend Earth. Talia shook her head slowly. Thank you, Commander. But that won't be necessary. If the Vraxians are truly bringing 50,000 ships to Sol system, she paused, her voice breaking slightly, then the galaxy is about to learn the real reason we wanted peace so desperately. What do you mean? Zexthar asked. Talia looked up at him, and in her eyes was an ancient sorrow. We didn't hide our strength because we were afraid you would fear us, Commander. We hid it because we were afraid we would become what we once were. But if they attack Earth, she took a shaky breath, then there's no hiding anymore. Admiral Chen's hologram straightened. All human vessels are ordered to return to Sol system immediately. Authorization code Omega Omega 7. Protocol, Homeworld Defense. As the human ships began moving, every alien sensor operator noticed something strange. The human vessels weren't just flying toward Earth. They were accelerating at speeds that would let them cross vast distances in impossibly short times. And in Sol system itself, something ancient was waking up. Defense systems that had slept for decades began powering on. Weapons that humanity had promised themselves they would never use again were coming online. The galaxy was about to witness what humans truly were when their home was threatened. And there would be silence. The Vraxian armada moved through space like a dark tide of death. 50,000 warships, each bristling with weapons, each commanded by warriors who had never known defeat. Warlord Kravex stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive dreadnought, called the Inevitable, and watched the stars stream past. "How long until we reach the human homeworld?" he demanded. 12 hours, Warlord, his navigator responded. Sol system will be within range by dawn cycle. Kravex's scaled lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. 50,000 ships. The humans showed their tricks at Horizon Hub, but tricks mean nothing against overwhelming force. We will crush their planet and take their technology. The hegemony will become unstoppable. His intelligence officer approached cautiously. Warlord, our scouts report unusual readings from Sol system. The humans appear to be activating defense systems throughout their solar system. How many ships are they assembling? Less than 300 defending vessels, Warlord. But there are other energy signatures we cannot identify. Large installations on several planets and moons. The asteroid belt shows unusual power generation. Kravex laughed, a harsh sound. 300 ships against 50,000? They are fools. As for their installations, our weapons will reduce them to dust. No defense can stand against this fleet. Meanwhile, in Sol system, humanity prepared. Admiral Chen stood in the command center buried deep beneath Earth's surface. Around him, holographic displays showed every ship, every platform, every weapon system in humanity's most defended place. His officers worked quietly, their faces grim but determined. "Status?" Chen asked. "All orbital platforms online," his tactical officer reported. "Luna base reports full readiness. Mars defense wings are launching now. Asteroid belt installations are at 98% power. The outer system watchers confirm Vraxian fleet approaching on schedule. Civilian evacuation? Underground shelters are at capacity. All civilians are secured. Earth is locked down." Chen nodded slowly. On the main display, he could see the planet. Below, blue and green and beautiful, home to 10 billion souls. Humanity's birthplace. The world they had almost destroyed themselves fighting over, then rebuilt with determination that bordered on obsession. His communication officer turned to him. "Sir, Ambassador Reeves is requesting a channel." "Put her through." Talia's face appeared on a smaller screen. She was still at the council station, but behind her Chen could see hundreds of alien delegates gathered, all watching the feeds from Sol system. "Admiral, the council is watching," Talia said quietly. "Every species in the galaxy has their sensors pointed at Earth right now. Whatever happens here will define how they see humanity forever." "I know," Chen replied. "Are you still advocating for restraint, Ambassador?" Talia was silent for a moment. Then she shook her head, tears visible in her eyes. "No, not anymore. Kravex chose to attack our home. He chose to threaten our families. He made his decision. Now we make ours." "Understood. We'll try to minimize the destruction, but I'm not asking for mercy for them, Admiral. I'm asking that you show the galaxy who we really are, not just our weapons. Show them our resolve. Show them why we wanted peace so badly." Chen understood. "We will. Chen out." The Vraxian fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Sol system. 50,000 ships, so many that their combined mass registered on gravitational sensors. They formed up in attack formations, their weapons charging, their crews eager for the slaughter to begin. Warlord Kravex broadcast on all frequencies. "Humans of Earth, you have one chance. Surrender your technology and your world. Submit to Vraxian rule, and we will spare some of your population as slaves. Refuse, and we will turn your planet into a graveyard." Admiral Chen's response was broadcast, not just to the Vraxians, but to the entire galaxy. Every species watching heard his calm, quiet voice. "No. One word. Final. Absolute." Kravex snarled. "Then die. All ships advance. Destroy everything." The Vraxian armada surged forward, a wave of darkness rushing toward the inner system. They expected the small human fleet to meet them. They expected a desperate last stand. What they got instead rewrote the rules of warfare. As the Vraxian fleet crossed the asteroid belt, the asteroids moved. Thousands of them. What the Vraxians had thought were rocks were actually camouflaged. Battle stations. each one hollowed out and filled with weapons technology that made their own arsenal look primitive. The asteroids didn't just fire, they unleashed hell. Beams of coherent light so intense they burned through shields like they weren't there. Missiles that could adjust their trajectory 1,000 times per second, making them impossible to evade. Projectiles accelerated to speeds where they hit with the force of nuclear weapons, and weapons the galaxy had never conceived of. Gravitational anomaly generators that crushed ships like tin cans, quantum disruptors that made matter simply cease being matter. The first wave of Vraxian ships, 5,000 vessels, was destroyed in 90 seconds. Kravex stared at his tactical display in disbelief as red icons blinked out by the hundreds. Impossible. No defense network can generate that much firepower. Warlord, sensors are detecting massive energy sources throughout the human solar system, his science officer reported, his voice shaking. The moon, their moon, the one orbiting Earth, it's hollow. It's not a natural satellite. It's a weapons platform the size of a small planet. What? Luna Base opened fire. The moon that humanity had first stepped on centuries ago, that had inspired songs and poetry and dreams, revealed its true purpose. Weapons emerged from hidden bays. Energy discharges so powerful they lit up the darkness like a new sun. The beams reached across space and carved through Vraxian formations with surgical precision. Then Mars joined the fight. The Red Planet launched. Wings of fighters, not hundreds but tens of thousands. Small, fast, deadly craft that moved with coordination no organic pilots could achieve. They were AI-controlled, guided by quantum computers that could calculate combat outcomes faster than thought. The fighters tore through Vraxian formations like wolves through sheep. They were too fast to target, too numerous to stop, and each one carried weapons that could disable much larger ships. Kravex was shouting orders, but his fleet was in chaos. 20,000 Vraxian ships now. 30,000. The losses climbed with terrifying speed. "Pull back," Kravex finally screamed. "Retreat to range and regroup." But the human defenses didn't let them retreat. The orbital platforms around Earth activated, thousands of them, invisible until now, surrounding the planet like a shield of death. They didn't fire outward. Instead, they created a field that trapped the Vraxian fleet inside the system, preventing them from jumping back to faster-than-light travel. The Vraxians were caught in a trap. Behind them, the asteroid belt. In front of them, Earth's orbital defenses. Above and below, weapons platforms on every planet and moon. They were surrounded, and then the human ships finally engaged. The 300 vessels that had been waiting near Earth moved forward. They didn't charge into battle. They didn't need to. They simply positioned themselves at precise coordinates, and then their weapons spoke. Each human ship was a masterpiece of military engineering. They fired weapons that bent space, that manipulated time, that weaponized the fundamental forces of the universe. One ship released a device that created a miniature black hole, pulling in dozens of Vraxian vessels before evaporating harmlessly. Another fired something that caused enemy ships to phase partially out of normal space, making them unable to function. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted 8 minutes from the moment the first shot was fired until the moment Warlord Kravex's flagship was reduced to molecular debris. When silence fell over Sol system, not a single Vraxian ship remained intact. 50,000 warships, the pride of the hegemony, had been completely destroyed. The casualty count on the human side was 0. Not one ship damaged, not one platform scratched, not a single weapon had reached Earth's atmosphere. Admiral Chen stood in his command center, surrounded by the quiet hum of machinery. His officers sat stunned, though they had known this outcome was inevitable. They had trained for it. They had prepared for decades. But knowing what would happen and witnessing it were different things. "Casualties?" Chen asked quietly. "Enemy forces completely destroyed, sir. No survivors detected. Human casualties 0. Chen closed his eyes briefly. 50,000 living beings gone in 8 minutes. It didn't matter that they had come to destroy Earth. It didn't matter that they had given humanity no choice. The weight of those deaths would stay with him forever. "Open a channel to the Council," he ordered. Throughout the galaxy, On every station and every ship, on every homeworld of every species, beings watched their displays in absolute silence. They had witnessed something that would be recorded in every history book, studied by every military academy, and whispered about in every corner of galactic space. Humanity had revealed its true face, and the galaxy would never be the same. The emergency council session began in complete silence. Every species representative sat motionless, still processing what they had witnessed. The recordings of the battle at Sol System played on displays throughout the chamber, but nobody needed to watch them again. The images were burned into their minds. 50,000 ships. 8 minutes. Total annihilation. High Commander Zexthar stood at the central platform, his golden feathers dull and flat. He looked at the human delegation for a long moment before speaking. Ambassador Reeves. His voice was quiet, almost broken. The Council requests that you explain what we have seen. Talia Reeves stood slowly. She looked older somehow, as if the weight of 50 years of secrecy had suddenly crashed down on her shoulders, but her voice was steady when she spoke. What you saw was Earth's home defense system. It represents centuries of human engineering, born from our darkest period when we nearly destroyed ourselves. We built it after our final global war, when we realized that unity and overwhelming defensive capability were the only way to ensure our survival. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Around her, the chamber remained silent as death. Earth has automated factories on every rocky planet in our system and on 17 major moons. We have manufacturing capabilities that can produce a warship every 6 hours. We have weapons development programs that have been running continuously for 300 years. We have artificial intelligence systems that can calculate tactical scenarios millions of times faster than organic minds. Why? A Clixon delegate's voice was barely a whisper. Why build all this? Because we nearly killed ourselves, Talia replied simply. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other. We had global wars that killed hundreds of millions. We created weapons that could destroy our entire planet. Nuclear, biological, digital. We pushed ourselves to the edge of extinction multiple times. She walked to the center of the chamber, and for once no one objected to a minor species taking the primary position. 200 years ago, we were on the brink. Our planet was poisoned. Our climate was collapsing. Our nations were preparing for a final war that would have ended human civilization. But we stopped. At the last possible moment, we chose to survive instead of destroy. We unified, we rebuilt, and we made ourselves a promise. Admiral Chen's hologram appeared beside her. We promised that we would never be that vulnerable again, never be that weak, never let our home be threatened by anyone, including ourselves. So we built defenses that would make attacking Earth completely pointless. We created weapons so powerful that no rational enemy would even try. And then we realized something else, Talia continued. Having that much power was dangerous. Not to others, but to ourselves. We had built the means to conquer the galaxy, and history taught us that when civilizations have power, they eventually use it. So we made a second promise. And what promise? Zexthar asked. That we would never use our power for conquest. That we would seek peace first, always. That we would hide our strength so others wouldn't fear us, so we could be partners instead of overlords. Talia's voice grew thick with emotion. We joined the council because we wanted to prove to ourselves that we could be more than warriors. We wanted to be part of something better. A Gorath representative's body glowed with confusion. But you watched us struggle. You let the Vraxians attack colonies, destroy ships, kill civilians. You could have stopped them at any time. Yes, Talia admitted, and the pain in her voice was clear. And that decision torments every human who made it. But we were terrified of what revealing our power would do. We've studied galactic history. We've seen what happens when one species becomes too dominant. Either everyone unites against them or everyone becomes dependent on them. Both outcomes destroy the balance that makes the council work. So you manipulated us, someone accused. We tried to give you a choice, Admiral Chen corrected. We wanted you to know us, to work with us, to trust us based on our character rather than fear our weapons. We wanted genuine partnership. And now? Zexthar asked. What happens now that we know the truth? Talia took a deep breath. Now we ask the council to decide. Can you accept humanity as we truly are? Can you look past our military strength and see our peaceful intentions? Or do we need to leave the council to preserve the peace? The chamber erupted. Some delegates demanded humanity be expelled immediately. Others argued that Earth's power made them too valuable to lose. A few spoke about how humanity had, in fact, shown restraint even when attacked. The debate raged for hours. Finally, the Zentari elder stood. His species was among the oldest in the galaxy, and when he spoke, others listened. "I have been alive for 200 of your standard years," he said slowly. "I have seen species rise and fall. I have watched wars consume entire sectors. I have witnessed what happens when military power and ambition combine." He turned to look directly at the human delegation. What I saw at Sol System was not ambition. It was protection. The humans did not chase the Vraxians. They did not pursue and destroy their homeworld. They defended their planet and stopped. He paused, letting that sink in. The Vraxians came to conquer. The humans came to survive. There is a profound difference. And in 50 years of Council membership, humanity has never once used their power to threaten or coerce. They have been patient partners even when we treated them poorly. Zexthar stepped forward. His feathers had regained some of their color. The Zentari speak wisdom. I was angry. I felt betrayed. But I must acknowledge this truth. Humans have had the power to dominate the Council from the beginning, yet they chose not to. They sought our respect, not our submission. He turned to face Ambassador Reeves directly. "Humans, I misjudged you. I called you cowards and deceivers. But I see now that hiding power requires greater strength than displaying it. Your restraint is more impressive than your weapons." Other delegates began to stand one by one as the truth settled over them. Humanity could have been conquerors. Instead, they had been guests. They could have demanded obedience. Instead, they had asked for friendship. The vote came hours later. By an overwhelming majority, the Council chose to keep humanity as members, but more than that, they created a new designation. Humanity would be recognized as the Council's protector, not rulers, not overlords, but defenders who would intervene only when threats emerged that the Council could not handle alone. Humans agreed, on one condition. They would share defensive technology gradually, helping other species improve their own capabilities rather than creating dependence on human protection. It would be a slow process taking decades, but it would ensure that the Council remained a partnership of equals. 6 months later, the galaxy had adapted to its new reality. Human ships now openly patrolled border regions, their presence preventing conflicts before they started. The Vraxian hegemony had collapsed after losing their entire fleet, and their former territories were transitioning to Council oversight. Species that had once dismissed Earth now sent delegations to Sol System, seeking trade agreements and military cooperation. Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of the Perseverance, watching Earth slowly rotate below. Beside him stood a young officer fresh from the academy. "Sir," the young woman said hesitantly, "may I ask a question?" "Of course." "Do you think they'll ever really trust us? After everything?" Chen smiled slightly. "Trust isn't given in a moment, Lieutenant. It's built over time through consistent actions. We showed them our weapons, yes, but now we need to show them our character. Every day. Every interaction. Every choice we make to help rather than dominate. That could take decades. Centuries, more likely. But it's worth it. Because the alternative is fear, and fear breeds resentment. Resentment breeds conflict. We didn't build those defenses around Earth to conquer the galaxy. We built them so we could live in peace without constantly watching our backs." The young officer nodded thoughtfully. "The other species, they're starting to call us the Silent Guardians." "I've heard," Chen replied. "It's not a bad name, though I prefer to think of us as partners who happen to be heavily armed." The lieutenant laughed softly. Then she grew serious again. "Sir, intelligence reports that there are other threats out there. Beyond the galaxy. Things that might make the Vraxians look like children playing with toys." Chen nodded slowly. "I know. We've been monitoring them for years. That's actually another reason we built what we built. Earth's defenses weren't just for the threats we knew about. They were for the threats we suspected existed but hadn't encountered yet. Will we tell the Council? When the time comes. When they're ready. For now, they're adjusting to the revelation that humans are more than we seemed. Let them process that first. Then we can discuss what else is out there in the darkness." On the Council station, Ambassador Reeves met with High Commander Zexthar privately. The Zephyrim commander had requested the meeting, and Talia was curious about what he wanted to discuss. "Ambassador," Zexthar began, his feathers arranged in a pattern that indicated respect among his people. I wanted to apologize personally. I was wrong about your species. I let my pride and my assumptions blind me to what humans were truly offering. No apology necessary, Commander. You reacted as anyone would have. We did deceive you in a way. For good reasons, Zexathar countered. I've been thinking about what you said, about wanting partnership over dominance, about choosing peace even when you had the power to do otherwise. He paused. My species has a saying, the strongest warrior is the one who never draws their blade. I always thought it was philosophical nonsense, but humans live that principle. Talia smiled sadly. We learned it the hard way, Commander. We drew our blades too many times, killed too many of our own people, destroyed too much of our world. We don't want to be warriors anymore. We want to be builders, explorers, friends. We just keep weapons around in case someone forces us to remember what we were. The galaxy is grateful you remember, Zexathar said, because frankly, after seeing what you did to the Vraxians, I don't think anyone will ever threaten the Council again. You've created peace through deterrence. That was the goal, Talia agreed, though I wish it hadn't required such a demonstration. They stood together in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the stars through the viewport. Ambassador, Zexathar said finally, there are rumors. Intelligence from the deep space monitoring stations. There may be threats beyond our galaxy, things that don't communicate, don't negotiate, things that simply consume. We know, Talia said quietly. We've known for a while. That's part of why we built what we built. Earth's defenses aren't just for galactic threats, Commander. They're for anything that might threaten life itself. Zexathar's feathers ruffled in surprise. You've been protecting us from things we don't even know exist? Someone has to stand watch, Talia replied simply. And humans, well, we're good at that. We've been watching the darkness for a long time, making sure nothing creeps out of it while you sleep. Far beyond the galaxy, in the empty spaces between stars where light takes millions of years to travel, something ancient detected the energy discharge from Sol system. It analyzed the data with intelligence that predated civilizations. It calculated threat assessment and potential resistance. The entity had been moving toward this galaxy for eons, consuming others along the way, but now it paused. The energy signatures it detected suggested weapons and defensive capabilities far beyond what it usually encountered. The calculation was simple. This galaxy might be more trouble than it was worth. There were easier targets elsewhere in the universe. Silently, without anyone in the galaxy even knowing it had been there, the threat turned away and sought elsewhere for prey. In his office on Earth, Admiral Chen received the automated alert from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. An unknown entity had approached, scanned the galaxy, and departed. He read the report carefully, then filed it away. Humanity's defenses had just won a battle without firing a single shot. The galaxy slept peacefully, never knowing how close danger had come. And in the darkness, human ships continued their silent patrol, watching and waiting, hoping they would never need to reveal just how much more they were still hiding. The silence spoke louder than any threat could. And the galaxy, for the first time in its long history, knew true peace. Because humanity had proven that the greatest strength wasn't in weapons or fleets or devastating power. It was in the wisdom to never use them unless absolutely necessary, and the courage to carry that burden alone.